That's nothing to do with any of us who are to do with this rather disorganised organisation, which it isn't an organisation yet. But whoever is running it, we're hoping that that can stop until it does become the mouthpiece of what might be an organisation, and the organisation doesn't actually happen yet. I think also we've got to say that the concept as we so far have got it is that we're trying to organise something which is non-partisan, and it's not pursuing any one particular interest. There are a lot of different interests people are pursuing very effectively, most of them, and we hope that can be encompassed within Hay Together. But Hay Together is not in the job, we believe, if that's the way it's going to go forward, of pursuing any one issue. It's really designed to address the concerns and represent the desires and aspirations of the broadest possible cross-section of the community, and emphasise as broad as possible. And this is a relatively small group of people when you look at the whole of Hay and the surrounding area. So we do hope it's going to embrace a lot more than just the people who are present here. It's also, as we see it again, I'm always prefacing it with this, not part of any town council or county council. It's independent of, but we hopefully will be able to work with the town council and with the county council and with whoever is in position of authority. What we think is that Hay Together should make various groups stronger without diluting their particular aims. The other thing which I think is important is we're very fortunate in Hay to have the amount of talent of individuals which is available to us, or could be available to us. There are considerable skills in our community, and I think it's important that we should take on the expertise and enthusiasm of this entire community, not just those people who are economically active, but those who are retired, and the youth. And I think youth have been a very large extent ignored, and they've got a lot to say, and after all, theirs is the investment in the future of this town and the surrounding area. So we're hopefully going to bring all those people together. This meeting, I hope, is going to explore what we want from Hay Together, what we can put into it, and decide if we're going to go forward indeed, or if we are, how we're going to go forward. Before we get to the meeting proper, one other thing I want to say is we're hoping that we can finish this meeting at 9 o'clock tonight. So we've got limited time, so hopefully we can get through everything that has to be done and ask for discipline from those people to make sure they keep their comments as short as possible, myself included. Before I go into the programme of what I hope we're going to be covering today, I think I do want to say and acknowledge Johnny Kramer and the work he's done here. Where is he? Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, the amount of work John has done in the last month has been quite staggering. And if we're foolish enough to let him go, we'll regret it. So I just personally would like to thank Johnny for the work he's done, which is quite unparalleled, and make sure that we bully him into continuing. I'm not sure he's necessarily going to be happy with that. Okay, the programme this evening is going to be really as follows. First of all, we've got 3 proposals from prospective partners, people who have we have approached or have approached us, who hope to help us take Hay forward through meetings, through a workshop. They're all going to look at the workshop. And by the way, we have on the table over there got the proposals they put forward. And if you want to look at those, we can pass them around now or look at them later on or whatever. Right, so that should cover the story. The 3 proposals come from Coombe Jones, so I think they're part of Cardiff University, aren't they?
Well, they've worked, they do work for Cardiff University in the design school.
But they have actually done this job before, very effectively, in North Wales. Yeah. We've got the Localism Network, who, if you remember, made a presentation last time we had a meeting here. And we've got Pavo. And the 3 proposals, I say, are over there, and if you've looked online, you're kept in touch with them, and hopefully seen and taken on board what they're going to do. At the end of the evening, I'm hoping we're going to be able to vote, if we want to see, which group we should go together with. And there's going to be all sorts of questions about that. Johnny, I'm hoping is going to talk about 2 things which are of interest to us, which he has, on his own, identified. One is action for market towns, the other one is local food network. And we may be aware of these, but we think that potentially they've got a lot to offer in what we're trying to do with Hay Together. And Johnny will give a bit of a story about that. Then we're going to open the meeting up, not as much for discussions, but hearing what individuals think Hay Together could do, what they want to do, and most importantly, what you think you could put into Hay Together. Because it's not a one-way process, it must be a two-way process. If we're going to get something out of it, we hope people are going to put something into it as well. And then at the end of the evenings, I'd say, well, vote on which group you want to partner us in organising a workshop, or decide that we don't want to go forward. And that's perfectly possible. That might be the feeling of the meeting. We can only ask those people here to vote. You can't ask anybody else. That's where it's got to work. Really, that's what the evening, I think, will be, unless I've forgotten anything, Johnny.
No, that's...
Oh, yeah, Tim...
Tim, yes, sorry.
Yeah, Tim Organ is going to be talking about Rural Alliance. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we really ought to start it straight off and ask Johnny to talk about the three different proposals that we should come forward to us. Johnny?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick. As Nick's mentioned, we've consulted with three organisations on how they can help us create a community plan. They were all invited this evening, and send their apologies. So I think rather than listen to me waffle on, what I'm going to do is use one of their PowerPoint presentations, which I think just gives quite a nice visual idea of what's involved in setting the community plan up. I'm not trying to show a bias towards this particular organisation. It's because I think you'll have read the proposals and realised that all three are pretty much proposing the same thing. So I'll just quickly flick through this PowerPoint presentation. So what would be the one moment the sun comes out? So I'll miss the stuff off about Coombs and Jones. Obviously, we're looking at studies at all scales, responding to historical, economic and social contexts, reflecting geography, culture and landscape. And it's worked. The idea is to try and work out what makes this place unique. It's understanding small-scale urban spaces through community consultation, working with students and design and planning. There'll be lessons learned from previous experience. Obviously, this particular company just completed a 2-year study up in Ruthin, which they've won an award for. But Localism Network and Parvo have all got a considerable amount of experience in working with communities. It's the ability to map, understand the natural, urban and rural landscapes, the physical, not only the physical, but the social, political and economic. And it's working with collaborators. I mean, these guys have worked with the Design Commission for Wales and Action for Market Towns, who I'll talk about later on. They say they've just done one for Ruthin. And this just shows the process that it goes through. It's just a consultation process. Key questions: what's Hay like? What are its strengths, its weaknesses? Where are the opportunities? What are the threats that the town faces? What do we want Hay to be like in the future? And how do we get there? I think all three organisations are basically looking at setting up a workshop which will look at ideas and will probably end up setting up something like, to coin a phrase, a town team. Although I'm not sure that's entirely appropriate. So you do a town study, form of the town, its landscape, its setting, and say understanding its history, growth, character, traffic and parking, land use, buildings and materials, public spaces, and use, social aspects, economic drivers and focus and distinctiveness. I have no idea what this one means. I'll start.
Can't see that, yeah.
But obviously you can see that with public consultation, they've set up these displays, and it gives everyone, the whole community, something to actually look at and see where their ideas have gone. Often it's the use of suggestion boards, and I think that's the idea that all three are proposing initially, is to get feedback from the community, because this isn't my vision, it's not anyone's particular vision, it has to be the community's. There's one idea. I think that's a great idea. But it's getting everyone involved, and it's getting, as Nick said earlier, getting all sides involved, and all, especially the schools. And I think up in Ruthin, the schools were big leaders in the whole process. This one is, why do people use a church hall, and what would attract people to the hall? Make a wish, and then promises. I think the question there is, tell us what you promise to do to make your neighbourhood a better place to be in. It's like plant trees at Wiltshire Green School. And again, it's just showing that participation with everyone. All sectors. And developing a town plan. Why should Hay on Wye be like? What should Hay on Wye be like in the future, and how do we get there? It's the long-term vision. Again, social, economic, or physical, environmental. Comparisons with other towns and town team visits. Conversation with local authority. And it's essential that we bring in local authorities, town council, national parks. And I don't know whether that was a mistake putting it in there, but I take it that at the end of all this we have a damn good knock up and celebrate our victory. So that's pretty much the PowerPoint presentation. So you can see that all three organisations, you've had the proposals through. And all three organisations are initially proposing a similar public workshop, which would start with an ideas board, maybe a couple of questions along the lines of what's good about Hay now, what's not so good about Hay now. And following on from this, working in groups, maybe being asked to describe a vision for a day in Hay 2020. I think the idea is to sort of create I hate this phrase, a SWOT report. It's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to the town. And this will help highlight the issues that concern the community and start to provide a map for the way forward. As an example, part of the invite that I sent out, I did actually ask people to give some examples of what they'd like to see Hay Together achieve. I didn't get that many back, but those that I did get back, just a few examples. What we would like to see Hay Together achieve. A grassroots plan movement for truly sustainable living to build resilience in the areas of the food economy, energy use and affordable living for local people. Someone else has written, they hope the group is still together in a year and has translated vision into action. Which is their wish. A community-led plan with lots of creative and sensible ideas to sustain the good things that we already have in Hay, and also to meet emerging and new needs of the community. Space and facilities for performance of music and theatre. I would like Hay Together to achieve a detailed and meaningful town plan to be completed in 3 stages to prioritise consensus over 1. Plans for an up-to-date primary school community hall facility to be under construction by 2014. Identify sites for and ways of providing social and affordable housing in Hay, and mapping Hay to identify ring-fenced areas for green spaces, housing, sport, leisure, heritage, and to provide options for their sustainable management. I'd like to see Hay Together make Hay an easier place for us to live in, food and homes we can afford, services that meet our needs, an environment people will take care of. I think even just with those few, we can see, a picture emerging. The difference, if there is a difference between the 3 proposals, I think it's that Localism Network and PAVO are quite vague, whereas Coombs and Jones' proposal has been quite detailed, because obviously they've used the Ruthin project as an example. Localism Network have sent a statement to back up their reasons for not being too detailed, and I'd like to read that out to you. Basically introduces and apologies for not being able to make it. Your dilemma is that until you have really clarified exactly what sort of plan or whatever is most appropriate for the community, you can't really make a choice of consultants to help you, or if indeed you need or want someone at all. Our dilemma, and that for any others, would be that we cannot, and nobody should be trying, outline any sort of overall programme until we fully understand your situation. As the doctor might say, no prescription before really checking the symptoms. Breaking this catch-22 is difficult, which is why we all had suggested to date was an opening session. But you need to be sure that when you run that session, you have outside people there who can illustrate for you the sharpest but also the widest possible range of options for how best to move forward. Sorry, but I'm going to have to do a bit of selling here because a serious concern about communities being given inappropriately narrow advice is one reason why our group, the Localism Network, came together. There are all sorts of directions to take. Things might veer at some point towards a need for architectural advice, i.e. the Coombs and Jones territory, but almost certainly not that alone. They might veer towards social issues, community capacity building, etc., the PAVO territory, but again, almost certainly not that alone. There certainly also seems to be a need with the school/supermarket issues for planning advice, and I could add a few more. We never pretend that we have all of that, but as they say, we know a man who can. As is happening right now, there is some neighbourhood level work we are doing where we have suggested the involvement of the English equivalent of PAVO. And because they know the area of work best, and in your case involving a Welsh organisation might even be essential, and another where we have suggested a need for a specialist in sustainability issues. The most important thing for you in your opening scoping stage is to be sure that you get advice that does not lead you into just one particular area or just what a particular organisation offers. The whole purpose of opening an event, of any opening event we might run, would be to link your inevitably broad scope of needs and aspirations to exactly who is best to help you deliver it. To which I might add that if there are various strands of work, you may also need somebody to make sure it all adds up properly together, and we certainly specialise in that. To finish it all up, we're really not sure that 10-minute presentations would have helped. In fact, as we know, it may have made things worse because it can be so tempting when you are unsure to go for someone who says they have the answer. We continue to believe that the first step needs to be some sort of scoping event, as above and as per our earlier note, led for you by people who can direct you to all the possible approaches, elements and skills necessary. And obviously they still think that they're best to do that. It's a very difficult decision that we have got to make. I actually think that all three are actually capable of doing it. But I'm not going to say any more than that at this stage. I mean, you've all had the proposals, you've all had a chance to read and hopefully digest it, and I think we need to discuss that afterwards rather than for me to bang on about my own personal views of it. I think what is clear is that there are an enormous number of organisations out there able to help us. And as Nick said, I haven't got a great deal to talk about it, but I've already come across Action for Market Towns. They've offered us 3 months free membership, which I've signed up to, and an organisation called Making Local Food Work. I just think it's just all these different organisations can all have their say in helping us at some point or other. But whatever or whoever, if anyone we choose, we need to realise that there is an enormous amount of work to do, and it's going to enormous amount of work to do if we're going to tap into the resources and really benefit as a result. And that pretty much sums up what I've got to say. Thank you.
Just jump in. I think we're at an extraordinarily interesting stage, if I want to call it that, really, as a nation, as a community. It'd be very easy to be complacent in how we've got it. It's all going to be okay. None of us really know what's in the future, both in the economy and the thing. There are some very exciting things in different ways that could be happening in here. I mean, the castle is one, the supermarket school is another. They're all things that will happen in one way or another. What I think we're trying to do is make sure that the community is listened to, not individual groups making their point, but the community as a whole has a say in its awful expression, is proactive in what happens in the future, is prepared as best as possible to handle whatever is thrown at us, if you like. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, we have to call on you again, John. He was talking about, or he really finished with...
No, I think that pretty much covers it, Nick. I think Tim has probably got a few words to say now.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I went to a conference in the Millennium Centre in Cardiff last month, which was stimulated and organised by the European Regional Development Fund, and they had speakers there from Holland, France, Germany, Scandinavia and Ireland, and I found it an incredibly stimulating day. Representatives were there for several hundred from all sorts of countries and different organisations, and the body that is actually promoting it in Wales is the Brecon Beacons National Park, in conjunction with the Welsh Assembly, and they did put on a very good show. And then the second day, we divided up into groups with a coach tour to Talibont and Brecon, Brickell and elsewhere, and they looked at different functions of tourism, rural development, agriculture, healthcare, transport, and what came over was that very successful organisations, particularly the French ones, I was very impressed with the people from Normandy, and the area just inland from Normandy, which is economically rather depressed, and what they all stressed was the need for innovation and creativity. And I spoke to John Cook, the chief executive of the Brecon Beacons National Park. They have a fund now of 400,000 to promote the idea of rural alliances, and it's very much about the sort of things you've heard tonight, about getting groups together to work in partnership, and at the root of it is the need for innovation and creativity. They all stress that, and I think it's important that this group takes a very positive line to really bring about change. The whole discussion really was about the need for change and to draw on the skills that are in the community. Our university, for example, people with that sort of high-level calibre expertise which can influence all of our lives, both socially and economically. Since to thank John Cook for the whole conference and workshop, and asked him what are the next steps, how do groups like Hay, and I told him about Hay Together, how do we actually take advantage of their funds and their expertise. I haven't got a reply yet, but I will pass that back through the organisation to distribute amongst you. But it just showed that immediately in the area there are other people looking at ventures just such as this. If they've got £400,000, it strikes me that we've got to be pretty fast off the blocks if we're to get our hands on any of that sort of money or help. But, you know, very encouraging, very exciting, very stimulating. Thanks.
One thing just to state is, at the moment, Hay Together is not an organisation. It's nothing. It's an idea. And that's, in fact, even plus and a minus. I mean, it's a plus because we're not high value. I think it's a minus because we can't actually get any money from anybody or any support until we've got an organisation. And I think two of the things we're going to look at perhaps tonight is one is, you know, we've been a co-opted group who have got it this far. I mean, John is the person who's done it mostly, but I think we've got to look at making sure we have got a group who can take it to the next stage, which really is the workshop. And Gareth, do we actually have to form an organisation as soon as possible, or what?
Well, it's up to everybody. I think the key,
if it's decided.
I think obviously there's key points. First of all, we need a discussion on are we happy with the progress and going forward with one of these organisations. If that's the way, obviously then we've got to agree who's going to actually come together, the subgroup, to actually pull that together as we had a working group previously to actually deliver it. Are people willing to put their names forward to do it? Taking a lot of time. All of us have put a lot of time into this, Johnny especially, to actually deliver how we've got to this night tonight. Yes, it seems 3 pieces of paper, but I tell you the hours that have gone into this, has been astronomical. I think, so there's several questions we've got to ask ourselves. Where do we want to go? Do we want to go there? Who do we want to partner up with to get there, if we want to partner? And who's going to lead on it? So I think if we go into questions, because obviously there's questions regarding finance, was one of the issues that brought up. We're not a group. We struggled to look for money previously because we're not a constituted group. Do we want to look at that? And obviously there is some cost to some of the proposals. I think one is free from Pavel, and there is costs to the other two. So John, I don't know if you want to just go through the costs, so everybody's got an understanding as we have the discussion of what the implementations are. If we go down one proposal, there is going to be the subgroup, there is monies available that people have pledged, but obviously we've got to firm that up, move that forward, and actually go forward, find extra monies if there's any monies available. So, Johnny, can you just give a brief of the costs for the three?
Yeah, sure. Basically, the initial sort of workshop, Localism Network and Coombs and Jones, I mean, they're commercial organisations, they want to be paid for it. You're looking in the region of £1,500 to £2,000 for that initial workshop. And I believe we've pretty much reached that target amongst pledges.
Yeah, those are pledges, so obviously they've got to be firmed up.
Yeah, yeah. The Pavo offer is that they've offered, so long as we supply the venue, then they have actually offered to do it free of charge. Thereafter, the Localism Network won't actually put a quote in because they've said it all depends on the results of that initial workshop as to how we progress to the next stage. but Coombs and Jones, they put in some ideas, just to give us some ideas, and we're looking at an overall cost of between, let's call it 15 to 20,000. But one thing that they do say, and I think again all organisations hinted at it, is that there is money out there to help us fund this, and especially when the buzzword, as Gareth said, is partnerships, and if we partner up with organisations, then that's looked upon very favourably when applying for funds. This is a quick fix. We're not looking at something that's going to be concluded over the course of the next couple of months. And the Ripon project took 2 years. I think their initial workshop was funded by the local town council, but the rest of it they managed to find funding for it from other sources, which was actually assisted by the organisation that we partnered with. I mean, that's one of the things you're paying for, is their skill and knowledge of knowing where these funds are actually available from.
Okay, right, I think on that point the best thing we can do is open it up for comments and questions from everybody around here. I think it's one of those, if you, obviously we haven't done the normal rounds of who you are and who you're representing. If you, when you do speak, if you say who you are and who you represent, it just gives other people an idea. Who would like to be first?
Me. I was just thinking about, I mean, obviously we've got proposals there, but from my perspective, I'm Lou Christie, by the way, representing no one really. From my perspective, if I was to employ anybody, I would want to meet them and I would want to talk to them, because all of this is about personality. And if you're not going to get on with these people, it's not going to happen. And it's whether we have an opportunity to do that. I just don't know whether I could make a decision from what we've seen tonight. I just think, especially because you're saying it's a community thing, surely we need a group, a kind of disparate group of people from, because obviously this is only one slice, as you say, and it's very limited about the representation of the whole of Hay. So surely we should have, some kids, some people, mums, dads, people from the shops, and we should meet these people, surely. That's my view.
We're talking about the next stage. We're not talking about necessarily committing to the whole plan. And I'm very keen, we've had 3 meetings now, and if we keep having meetings and waiting to discuss and talk to people, then I feel as though the enthusiasm may start to wane. So it is difficult, and it was brought up at one of the working with one of the committee meetings, and it was an oversight on my behalf. I should have insisted that they came right from the start, and I didn't think about it. It was a last-minute decision I sent out, and I wrote to them, and I said, please will you come up, because there's people that want to ask questions. So 2 of them were hoping to come. I mean, Localism Network actually refused, and they sent that statement. But they had been up, so you've all had a chance to meet them at the last meeting, which actually I didn't. So I do appreciate it. It's a difficult decision to make, but it's not. And the other thing that they all emphasise is that they're there to lend a hand. They're not there to lead.
So they're facilitating.
Yeah, absolutely. It has to
they're not,
be
they're not dictating.
The community that runs this project. They're there just to sort of say, "Oh, be careful doing that, because what happened with so and so when they did that."
So they would just effectively pull it together, and the community would be the people on the ground out there asking questions, involving, engaging, working everything out. Really, so they'd just be a body that would just basically manage the process.
And the commitment that's being looked for is not a massive financial commitment. In the first instance, it's about £2,000. Nothing, or £2,000 from one, £2,000 from the other. We don't have to go the whole route with any of these people.
No,
We should stop at that point.
So if we didn't, didn't find that process engaging in the first place,
Well,
we could sack
else.
them.
Right, there's a few hands shooting up now, which makes it quite interesting. Sue,
Yes, I'm Sue Falgate. I'm from the council. And I've been at both ends of facilitation, both facilitating and being facilitated. And I think it's absolutely what you said, Johnny, that I think we can assume that if they're doing their job properly, which I think we can assume they'd be able to do their job properly, they will be enabling the people in the room to do the work rather than... And they have to be skilled in interpersonal stuff. You know, they have to be able to relate to people. So I think it would be a fair assumption to make that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's only an initial contract you're making with any of these groups for an initial workshop anyway. So you're not signing your life away.
Yeah. And the commercial organisations, you know, come with a fair bit of history.
Yeah.
They
That comes with credentials.
Yeah.
I'll stand up so I can see everything. Rodney.
My feeling is very much that one of my experiences in these sorts of situations is that because we're very uncertain what we want, we look for certainty. But one of the ways of getting certainty, which is always a danger for any voluntary organisation, is to look for a professional. I think the thing that we need to do is to look around the room and realise we're an extremely experienced, talented lot. And I personally think we could organise a day ourselves in this building where we would be enormously further forward with understanding of what we want. I think one of the differences of sitting in a room like this is a feeling of slight anxiety. Where are we going? What are we doing? Who's going to help us? Do we need a lifebelt? Do we need, do we need a rocket? Do we, whatever. What we actually should be doing is coming here and saying what we do and what we can offer, because I don't know. I know most of the faces in this room, but I don't know what all these people can offer. But I'm bloody certain it's fantastic, whatever it is.
Sarah.
Just to add to that, really, in terms of PAVO, I think if I hear Johnny correctly, saying there was very little to choose between the three, really, and certainly just reading the briefs, there's not a lot of meat on the bones of any of the three. If PAVO are willing to provide that service free of charge, and we have expertise in the room, then let's work. My suggestion would be then let's work with them to use their knowledge and skills and our expertise to deliver something ourselves. And then if we need to move to the next step, investing in something to take our ideas forward, that's where we should be going.
Sounds good.
I'm from small groups, by the way.
Sad for the resident. I've got experience on both ends of the facilitation thing as well. And the other thing I would think we need to look at is one that the architect company, they were doing their roofing stuff as part of a PhD.
It was actually, yeah.
So that actually means that they're investing a huge amount of time in that, almost as well on top of what they would normally do, because that's what a PhD is about, is it allows that time frame. And I'm assuming therefore the costs are higher than they would have been for roofing, because they're having to then pay for those costs unless they're going to do another PhD. So that might be something, or it might be an additional person incoming, I don't know. The other thing is, if we're thinking about employing an organisation to help take us forward, I think we want to think about the longer term relationship as well. And certainly, at least we know that PAVO's got a long-term history in the area and experience from that point of view, and it might be useful to build the relationships with them regardless of whether we use them for the initial workshop, because they have a lot of contacts and resources, and I know they have a list on their website of all the different funding sources, for example. But I do agree, I think there's a huge amount of resource in the area. I was just thinking the first stage might be right for something like open space technology, where actually you get everybody to identify what they see are the issues and you develop your workshops from that. And there are a lot of little techniques, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who knows quite a few of the facilitators' techniques, that maybe if we... But see, I don't feel I'm clear enough about what the initial workshop is, because the initial workshop isn't about developing our vision. That's sort of one endpoint.
It's getting the ideas, it's getting people's ideas, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole idea of the sort of the notice board and the post-it notes. You know, you ask the
What
question,
we want, what
yeah,
are the issues?
yeah, and then you start to, from what I understand, you start to group those, and then that sort of starts to give you a
For
map.
me, then, the issue in terms of whether we did it ourselves was there are a lot of resources here. It's actually the time to write it, put it all together afterwards, isn't it? It's not the doing, it's what you do with the information afterwards.
questions that you want to ask from your community.
Yeah, and it's then what you do with that information, how you put it together, how you analyse it.
And I think you do need someone stepped away from
Yes.
the community to actually put a balanced view of what questions, from the evidence we give, the balanced questions, because we do need that extra resource. Just
And
that
the
little,
time.
and the time, just that little step away. Right. Sorry.
Hello, I'm John Stark, and I'm interested amongst other things in music. But my comment follows on from yours. Relying on volunteers from the local community is, I think, not as easy in that the people who are volunteering with expertise are already much involved, either in their own lives or careers, or in parallel organisations. And I have a feeling that we could overstretch those people with expertise if there wasn't somebody supporting them. And this, I suppose, comes back to the point that you made initially. We will need to be an organisation of some sort before we can embark on any arrangement with anybody. But I do worry about depending on volunteers. By their very nature, they can be unreliable, they're sick, they move, they go on holiday, or they're overcommitted. And we should use them, but not depend on them.
Ross.
Well, I like everything I've heard, and sort of
Can you
agree with
introduce
everybody. Oh, sorry, Ros Garrett, and like Sue, I'm currently on Haytown Council. Not representing Haytown Council here. A couple of things. What Sarah said about working with Pavo to begin with initially to kind of kick-start the process does seem to make a lot of sense. Because after that, we will have identified some really important issues. We'll begin to get some very clear kind of columns of the whole issues for us. And then we will be in a position to decide what we do next with that. So that does sort of make sense. In terms of funding, the early stages anyway, well, if Pavo are going to do that free, that's great. But I do have a kind of fear that if we do something that isn't, Sarah said that there wasn't much meat on the bones of any of them. Actually, I disagree. I felt that there was a lot of meat on the bones of the Coombs and Jones proposal, that was very thorough and far-reaching. I felt that the Localism Network, it was a bit kind of rushed off. It was a bit sort of, although their explanation for not coming tonight hung together extremely well. And I'm afraid I thought that Pavo's was just a little bit pedestrian and was a bit the sort of thing you expect if you go to a day's training.
I agree.
But I think in terms of kick-starting the process, it probably would be very adequate, and I think Rodney's right. We have an enormous amount of talent here. One more thing to say, in terms of constitutions, I'm not so certain that you really need to constitute Hay Together. I think if you look upon Hay Together as being a forum or a hub where people and organisations who operate in Hay can come to voice their concerns or what it is they want to talk about, that in itself is good enough. What you don't want to do is end up being another layer that is competing with the already busy organisations in the town. And if, as a hub or forum, which is a good way of describing it, you have within the members of that forum, the people who come, will contain plenty of organisations with constitutions that could apply for discrete, when I say discrete, I mean specific lumps of funding to do specific jobs. Because they've got bank accounts, they've got the constitution to do that. So I think that actually being constituted will hamstring the whole process.
I actually agree with you, and I think it's more of a memorandum of understanding amongst all the organisations here. My own view of saying we all agree to work together and respect. You know, we can draw up a memorandum of understanding, you know, amongst ourselves and agree to this. But obviously, I think this is an important part. So, just questions, John. Do you want to come?
Could an organisation such as Ros suggests come to an agreement with a company which involves finances, or would this diffuse organisation, have to act through some other group?
You mean
a non-constituted group.
Organisation.
Can it have a bank account? Can it get into
no
financial arrangement?
No, but it can. But as a group, it will have members of that group that have bank accounts and constitutions that could apply for project funding to run.
Can I just give an example? Because obviously we were looking previously and getting funding together. We went to the town council to see if we could hold the money in their account. Because of the constitution we weren't able to. But there was another organisation in Hay, I won't mention their name, but they under their constitution they were able to hold the money and then pay the money out. So we were able to get around that by then. So we could pay the money in as a group to that organisation, and I'm sure there's other organisations with the same that could then pay it out. So that there is ways around it that we can actually work together without actually having to have bank accounts and other issues like that. It all depends on the organisation, their accounts, their constitution, and also the auditors and a lot of those things that go through. Steve, sorry.
Yeah, I've been a bit frustrated waiting for this meeting because I was at the last one. I thought it was like this one, it was a good feeling. But it's taken us quite a while to get here. And, you know, I'm keen really that we get to the first phase, which is to get people together to work in a workshop. And that when I hear, you know, that you've been doing a lot of work, Johnny, but it's in isolation up to now. And the sooner we can get, you know, a few of you. So what we agreed last time, it was an interim group to get us to first phase. So I still think, listening to everybody here, that's really important. If you look at the conversation here just about that process, you know, it's working quite well, but it's very narrow. It's one small item. So I think we do need facilitation to get 30, 40, 50 people contributing, which is what we're all waiting to do.
Yeah.
We need a structure and a process and a bit of facilitation management, so there's little groups and big groups and coming back together. And somebody has to think all of that through. You know,
and it needs to be representative as well, doesn't it? Of the whole of Hay, somehow.
Does it initially? Because
you
can't invite people. It's up
yeah.
I mean, you can only tell people what's going on, invite them to take part and try and encourage them to. It's terribly difficult to get everybody to come to these sort of things, I'm afraid. I don't know how you do it.
Roz, your arm shot up real quick there.
That's why you go for professional facilitators, because they know how to get people in. They make it interesting. You ask people to come to a public meeting and they go, oh no,
yeah, it's got to be different.
But there is other branches we can do with this if we go down the Pavo line. What I've done with the LDP, with the National Parks, I went and spent an evening, I'm sure, with the youth club. So the youth of Hay actually fed into the LDP within the National Parks. I went down there with a map, stuck the map on the wall, what do you want, where do you want it, bikes, right, you know, motorbike track there, BMX track there, and you know, people, but they put their views in, so they actually fed into it.
I think it's a case of going there, going down the youth club and saying, we've got a meeting, we want 4 of you to represent the youth club, come on down. And the same with the football club, go and ask them, and to put forward some people to come to a meeting.
Gareth?
I'm from the Junior Football Club and also I'm a Peering Governor as well. I'm hoping I'm not speaking out of turn here, Stu, but we've got a school fete on July the 14th. Could we have a board up that day? Could this group be represented that day, Stuart? And can ideas be thrown from the community that day? Can we get more partners there? that's what the future is. That's what these children...
You've got to go out to them.
You know, so can we have the post...
Go to them.
I don't know, you know,
Go
that's...
to
Sorry,
the
Stu,
people.
that's fine.
It wouldn't work best in this room. Somewhere, yeah.
I don't think, but this is where we, you know, what we need, if we decide to go down whichever route, we need to set the working group as a previous working group to actually start leading this, to get the information together, to work with where we select, to say, right, there's certain works we want to do to attract, because obviously they're not going to draw the all the workshop together by the time the school fete is. What can we do to assist you so we make sure we get musician? What's the questions we need to ask? And then we can go on from there perhaps and perhaps spend the night at the youth club, start involving the youth a little bit more, pre-season training. You know, there's things we can do as a community to assist the facilitator to actually deliver it, to make sure all parts of the community are listened to and all the parts of the community feed into what the plan is. Because it's all very good, like I said, very good turnout today, but we are a small part of the community, and people go, who are they together? You know, I talk about it to people, and they still, and we've got to get the message out, we've got to do, that's part of the new group. So,
should we not, as a group, decide an issue, whether it is thought that we need a facilitator, an outside facilitator, rather than something that we can do as a community? Not something we can do.
Yeah, following on that point, I think the other huge advantage of an outside facilitator is, yes, I agree with you absolutely, there's masses of talent, but I do agree with John's point. And you need someone not only with skill, but you need someone without a vested interest who is holding the process. And I think that's tremendously important. Apart, you know, there's so many opinionated in the best possible way people in Hay, you know, and that's great. But when we're in this beginning process together, to gather all of that into something which is going to be meaningful and help us to move forward.
I think we're at a key point now to ask the question, do we, as a group, want to go to the next stage and look at moving Hay Together forward? Before we go into who we were, do we actually feel that we can go together and start putting a community plan together? I think it's a simple show of hands. Is everybody? I think there's nobody really. No? Good. And the second thing is, how do we want to do it? Do we want to do it ourselves, or do we want to do it with a private... Sorry.
No, I don't see any contradiction between what I was suggesting and what was being suggested by...
I think everybody's saying the same thing to me.
That you need, I still could worry about feeling that we need somebody else. I really do. I really feel that we haven't done that stage. We've sat in a room in a circle. This is the third occasion, and which we've batted these ideas about. What we haven't actually done is to break into little groups in these meetings and start talking about things that we would like and come out after half an hour with a sheet of paper. We haven't got to that stage before we can even begin to think whether we need somebody for the next stage. Right. So I'm very much for encouraging us to have great feeling of our strength before we find somebody else who can help us, which we may or may not need.
Ross?
Yes.
Yes.
No. And yes, and why don't we do both? Why don't we start right now and tomorrow and the next day by identifying some places where we could, as Gareth suggested, where we could start straight away by having some places where we can have big boards, and Johnny, you'll have to make up some simple country speak to go on the top.
Sorry, I volunteered you.
That's, you know, just gets the message across that what we want on those boards are aspirations, worries, concerns, needs, etc. concerning Hay.
Offers.
And offers. Thank you, and offers. And I've already made a little list. The school fate's one place, We could have one in the library, we could have one in the doctor's surgery, we could have one in the volunteer bureau, we could have one at the Allotments Association, we could have one at Hayfield Garden, we could have one down at the co-op, I'm sure they put one up. One in the youth club, thank you. One in the marketplace.
School.
Yes, school generally. By the school gate so that when people, or by the school door so that any parent can... So we could start doing that immediately. We could start, as Rodney says, right now, getting into groups and making lists. And then, at the same time, we could also crank up Pavo to come and pull, or someone to come and, or whoever, to come and pull those findings together and do the next stage. Yeah?
Sorted.
Okay.
No, I think that's a very good idea. So, is that a proposal?
Yes.
Right, okay, so that's been proposed. Does anybody want to comment on those proposals there?
Can I propose that at the moment we split into, I don't know how many people are here, and we...
It's 15-minute discussion.
15-minute discussion in groups, to group ourselves, make a list maybe of things that we've talked about.
Before we split up, we'll just go quickly any more
and then
questions.
we can give them to Johnny.
Yeah, I was just going to... Sorry. I think the basic thing we need to do is explain to the wider community what this whole idea is, you know, what we're asking people to comment on, you know, and explain it clearly and simply to, you know, and invite suggestions. You know, I'm not even sure what we all want, really.
So
you
is that
know.
what we should be discussing now?
I think so.
How to convey
how to communicate to people.
How, what, and why?
Yeah.
Okay.
Very basic questions.
So I think obviously...
Huddle together?
Huddle together, yeah. We go into 4 or 5 groups, and I think it's simple as how, what, why we're here, and what we want to do.
What anything happens, you put people into no bigger than 6.
Okay.
That's fine. You can have 20 groups if you want. You know, but it's one of those. Sort yourselves into groups of 6, 7.
I think we also need to tag into that what we want. So we're saying what it is we're about and what we want, but actually what do we want from the people when we put that notice up saying this is what we're about? What is it we want to ask the community contribute? Because if we don't ask that in a consistent way, we can't pull it together.
So we're talking about the how, what, why.
And what are the questions we want on that notice board to people to answer?
Right,
What is it we want
we just
to
need to
ask?
clarify this.
I'm totally confused about what we're
Okay.
So is this quite a good reflection of why we need a facilitator? Because we're all I just feel exhausted already, sort of feeling, you know, it's like, oh my god.
Surely why we need somebody who's not part of the community, involved in some way, who
With lots of energy.
pull all this together.
It's asking the right questions in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah.
Asking the right questions of us. Why are we here?
I mean, I think it's kind of great, but I think we could end up going around in circles and having a load of information that we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Facilitate.
I mean, maybe tonight we could... sorry, my name is Fritz Beckley, and I'm from the Cheese Market Group, but I'm not from the Cheese Market Group. You know, maybe we should talk about how to engage the greatest number of people in the process. I mean, that to me seems to be a very critical first move, because unless we engage people originally in the process, they will always be outside the process. It will be difficult to get them into the process once it's started. So before anything happens, I think maybe my view would be to have some understanding of how we're going to engage the youth, old people, young people, middle-aged people, working class people, posh people, whoever. How are we going to engage them all?
Sounds good.
Isn't that to a degree what a facilitator will do? Guide us into doing that effectively.
Well, like everybody else in here, I'm a facilitator, so we're full of facilitators.
But do you want to do it? This is the question.
Something already said, I think
For nothing.
in the last century shows the extent to which we could
Benefit.
we could gain from having somebody who's seen this before, a group of well-meaning people floundering on those and one doesn't exclude the other. If the facilitator, the group that said isn't going to come tomorrow, And in the interim, there's no reason why Ros's idea of small informal groups shouldn't get together, and then we'd have something to present to the facilitator as a starting point.
Well, I don't like the idea of small informal groups getting together in a disparate way and getting too kind of carried away somehow. I like the idea of having the whole process kick-started in public spaces, because...
Right. Aren't we an informal group?
Yeah, well, we are, but, you know, the idea that sort of, you know, whoever goes down the con club might work up a plan, and then whoever goes down the British Legion works up another plan.
You're talking about these workshops right now. It's about spending 15 minutes right now in small groups. So the question is, what are we going to ask ourselves?
That's all that...
So is it,
Seems to me
what is it we want to ask the community?
You don't need to decide.
What is it that we want to ask?
No, you don't need to. The problem is that they're putting up, there are a lot of these defences going up now, until we can't do anything until we decide. I think to split up and start talking, and it's very striking how soon a few things will emerge.
Okay, a lot of hands up, so I'll do them in order.
No, I was going to say I agree with Rodney completely, and let's just get on with it. There's enough people in this room here who are facilitators, like Ray just said. I facilitate. Who else has done facilitate? Yeah.
Malcolm Smith, representing Family for Hay. I'm listening to a lot of people talking in this manner. I say, well, we're assembled and we believe we have some purpose. But surely, even though we're not constituted, any organisation must establish somewhere fairly early on what their main objectives are. If we were writing a constitution, we would put as the first thing what our objectives are. And even though we may wish to do it in many ways, I think somewhere, maybe a small group, maybe the people that we originally put aside at the last meeting, should come up with some overall objectives before we start, you know, talking in detail. I mean, we talked about a town plan, or the guys who came before talked about finally aiming towards a town plan, something that we all agreed was what we were trying to see as the pattern, or the
But the pattern will only emerge when we ask, when we go out to public consultation, and that we can't put. You know, I don't have any right to say what Hay Together should be. You know,
but the very fact that we brought us together, we feel that there is a need to act as a community to determine some sort of objectives. I mean, we are together, we come here together for some purpose.
My only objective is to find out what the community considers its main issues are, and then to decide a way forward to address those issues.
Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry to cut people off because people are jumping in, but people are putting their hands up.
Can we not go around the group, not bother with splitting up? Because I think Rodney's right, we are putting barriers up. And each person say, for example, a strength of Hay, a weakness of Hay, something they would like to see improved in Hay. That at least gives us something to build on straight away. It gives us immediate points to build on. And perhaps from that we will get a clearer perspective on a starting point.
The room seems to be full of facilitators, but they all like to stand up.
Yeah, and perhaps facilitate us.
Run the meeting for us. Who are all these facilitators?
I think what was, as a facilitator, we have a process issue. We've been invited here this evening by some people that have done some preparation, right? So they should be facilitating the meeting, and half of us in the room have gone off-piste. And as soon as the room goes off-piste, it's very difficult to get any control back. You know, so that's what we're suffering from here. Every new idea that comes up, there's nothing wrong with your idea, Ros's idea, Sue's idea, whatever. But we have a lot of different ideas about what to do in the next hour. And we're never going to resolve which one to do now.
Yeah. Barrow shrugged,
so through some process together to do with the town, the future of the town, consulting with the town and that sort of thing. But our first step is to get a process in place. And we don't, or we'll suffer from what, you know, it's quite interesting, a lot of positive energy in here, but we're not able to move at the moment. So my vote is we ask Johnny, or don't know your name, sorry, or Nick or Gareth, to you know, to see if you can get us to the first stage of what you felt you wanted out of the ceiling. It's not you imposing something on the town, it's you helping us get to first base.
I think actually that was the thing. It was, first of all, do we feel that we want to move to the next stage?
Yeah.
Then it's setting up a group to actually take it to the next stage, or the first stage, whatever you want to call it, with the facilitation group. So, what do we want to do?
I mean, it is just that. Are we going to go forward, or is this the end of it? If we're going to go forward, are we got outside help to go forward? If we are looking for outside help, which of the groups available to us should we be going forward with? Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we've already said we want to go forward.
Yeah.
So do we want to partner up with anyone?
Good. I think that's
Do we think
worth
it would
voting
help?
on. Do we want to vote on? Do we want outside for this?
Yeah, I think that, I think obviously, thank you, Steve. Right, those in favour of using a facilitator, or a partner as I like to call them. Right, I think that's every in favour. Right, now the question is, who do we want to use? We've got three.
Just to make things a little bit more complicated, the Norway they've all said they're happy to work together.
Yes, good.
A, localism network, B, Coombs, C, Pavo, or 4, a combination, or reopen nominations.
Yes, that was insane.
Sorry, I mean, there's a fourth option perhaps, and that is that because there are so many facilitators in town, is that they, get together and just design a day. I mean, we do
that'd be brilliant.
We know how to do it, and we just do it. Well, I'm a facilitator. I don't want to do that job. Because if you ask somebody in this town to facilitate, when it doesn't work according to some people who've got device ready, I think that's clear to point the finger at them out there.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's a valid comment, and I fully support Steve on it. It is something that I think we need someone from outside to actually facilitate, because it just gives that outside view, as I said earlier.
Yeah, and it's neutral, isn't it?
It's neutral. I think we need that neutral act there. But it's up to, I may agree with Steve on it, other people may have a different view on it. So, how are we going to move this forward? We've got vote, right. Right. How do you want to do it? Piece of paper A, B, C, D? Or just... Okay, right. Okay. We've got 3 proposals. 4 proposals.
Say again, sorry?
Yeah.
I've met 2 of them and spoken extensively. Do I have an opinion? I'd very much like to see a partnership. I think it's important that Parvo are involved, but I think we need one of the other professional groups to join with them. I'm really torn because I like what localism networks say, but I like the fact that Coombs and Jones are Welsh and understand the Welsh issues.
Yeah. It's like one is a bit on the slip side, and the other one is a bit on the experience side. They only know one side, and the other 2 were. So it's not an easy call.
No, it's not easy.
I think obviously what where do we want to go to? We're talking about facilitators. Are we talking just to the next stage to kickstart it off? So we just review from there. Is that the easiest way as a vote? Sorry, what?
I think that the point of any of these organisations is there's got to be a lot of preparation work before they can actually do it. I mean, they need to know a bit more about what we're after before they can, as it were, I don't think it's for them to go around the hay because they wouldn't quite know what we're after. Where would they go? Who would they?
On that point, do you think it would be better then, instead of before we vote for which organisation we want, should we appoint a group to start it off amongst ourselves of how is the facilitator who's going to go back to them? The questions when they're asking, they're going to have to come back to a group as the previous group before. Who wants to be in that group? Can we agree a group I'm sure
Other than Johnny Craig, he should be.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's a valid point, because we're talking about going with a group, and then all of a sudden, well, who actually wants to help set them off and guide them?
Answer questions.
Answer questions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Excuse me, can I just say? I'm Kate, by the way, representing the artists and artisans of Hay, been asked to do so. I think by the time, knowing the way these things, how everything takes so long, if we engage somebody like Pavo to come and help us, by the time we've made an appointment for them to, you know, for the first meeting, we could have done what Ros suggested and what Gareth suggested, start putting out some boards in town. We could have collected quite a lot of information before the first...
but I think what would be helpful, and there's valid points, and hopefully the little group can do that, but we need to talk to Pavo to make sure we're asking the right questions by talking to them, by giving them the view. So I think they go together. Instead of going out and asking questions, they go, why did you ask that question? I think it needs to be one of those, valid point, and there is work, and that's what we need to bear in mind. When people are putting their hands up now, I'm sure all your hands will be going up volunteering for this, putting your hands up saying, and that's going to be the key of the little core group, to actually start delivering that, but working with Pavo before Pavo can meet us all as organisations. Gareth?
3 things here. I think we've got to go to the vote.
Yeah.
We've got to split into groups of 6 or whatever tonight. It doesn't matter what goes on those pieces of paper, because every idea is a good idea. That can then go to the third point of the small group that we put together, because they've got something then to take forward to if they go to Pavo or whoever. That's as simple as it can be for me.
Right.
I know that people are unwilling to split into groups, and I don't blame them. But I think you've got a very valid point, because otherwise, whoever is appointed to be the sounding board for Pavo is going to be rung up, and they will give what they think is. They've got to have
some guidance.
Some guidance.
Okay.
Even if that's not the eventual direction, which is
Yeah.
meant to be going.
Right. Should we first of all settle on who we want to start to the first stage with? Is everybody happy with that? Right, we've got 4 possibilities. Well, is this 4 possibilities or 1 possibility?
It's Localism Network, Coons and Jones, or Pavo, or a combination of.
I don't see how combination.
We don't want to see a combination.
Dissipating energy, really. You need one initial approach.
Initial approach, I personally feel it should be one organisation.
Does money matter?
No, I don't think it does.
You don't take that into account.
Yeah, right, okay. We've got 3 groups there. Show of hands. First of all is Coons and Jones.
Are they North Wales?
Cardiff.
But they did the project in North Wales, yeah.
Okay, Kate.
Yeah.
Local network. Localism network.
3.
4. Pavo. Sorry, Pavo habits, right. So the first thing is we're going to use Pavo to go to the first stage. We've got flip chart paper and pens ready.
I facilitated that already.
The workshop is going to be on this date, we can agree on that. That's what we're working for. We can always move it, but let's work towards it.
I think that's a valid point. So, does anybody want to put a proposal for a date? Second week in September?
Let's get this. I think we've got to capitalise on the enthusiasm of the others. If we dither and delay things, the whole thing's going to go off the ball.
Ellie?
I'd like to propose that you ask Pavo to find the next available slot in the diary, rather than just predicting a date when they might be free.
Pavo in mid-September, is that?
We're aiming
Something like that, because obviously people have holidays in August and we want to utilise as many people as possible. So if we say when kids go back to school and things like that, mid-September, ask Pavo what's their earliest date around mid-September. Yeah. Is everybody happy with that?
How long is it going to take them to prepare for this?
Yeah,
So on and
yeah.
so
They may come back and say we can't do anything until we've got to talk to you first, come and have meetings with the subgroup, blah, 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 we can't do anything until the middle of October, but that's fine, we can communicate that back then. Right.
I'm in danger of letting this whole, the energy of the fate go. And the other thing is, this, I might be wrong, did this not rise out of Plan B and Powys and connections in terms of the supermarket and so on and so forth? And are there not deadlines in respect
Early
of that?
discussions were, this is not about supermarkets, this is not...
Not about it, not about it,
It's
but
not about
sort of
supermarkets, this is
to get
not about
everybody's view.
schools, this is not about... It's about the community. The perfect world would be having this meeting without it. It may have,
of course.
It may have started off because of it, but what we don't want, because if you start down that line, the community where we've had the problems where the community's taken swipes and bites out of each other, you end up doing that again. And if that's a line you want to go down, I'm stepping away and walking away because I won't be part of that. It has to be a community group, community forum coming together to discuss, and this should be meeting in 20 years' time, 30 years' time, as a regular occurrence to facilitate, communicate with each other what we're doing. It's not a single issue.
No, I wasn't suggesting it.
But I know what you're saying, and there is timelines and stuff like that, but what we don't want to do is turn it into something because you're going to lose it straight away.
It's like, I've only got one so far, Johnny.
Well done, Mary. Right, Johnny, you happy?
asking a bit much. I want to work, but I want to work. I want to work with a team.
With a team,
yes.
Oh, thanks.
But a team that want to do it.
Well, again, I was just Gareth should be involved because as a referee he's useful, and the man has got some sort of position of usefulness.
I'd rather not say that, but.
What his name's down?
Nicholas, are you interested?
I mean, I'll do it by Kirsten.
Who else? We obviously we're asking the same group as before. Is there other people?
I do think we need some fresh faces, one or two people who are perhaps facilitators who might want to get involved here. Sure.
John, you scratching your head there, or you vote on these?
I'm saying let's get talking. We're doing what's been mentioned, which is that we're going off.
Yeah, no, but we're having this, and then what we can do, each person is sit in each group.
I nominate Rodney to be part of the group.
Rodney, right.
What am I being volunteer?
Right, how many have we got there at the moment?
We need some fresh blood.
Yeah, we need some. We've got one.
Two. Well, Rodney only started. He never
Yeah.
finished. He's only been missing a week.
Who else would like? Come on, this is.
I'll do something.
Lovely, brilliant, thank you.
I guess people need to. It's got to be to do with time constraints because I'm sure we've got lots of willing people here, but with limited time. So we need to say, is it an hour a week or?
It could be certain people lead on certain things. And
is it an email or what's
meetings,
required?
Meetings, like last night we met about 8:30, had a quick drink and discussed how we'd run the meeting today and how we try and get it move forward without facilitating.
I retract that.
Very pub orientated.
What is that? 7 people?
I'm going to nominate. I'll tell you in a minute. I'm still writing names down.
As an employee, I can help a little bit, but haven't got a lot of time.
Liz, yeah.
I just want to communicate with them if you need to.
Kind of useful.
You've got 10 now.
10, I think that's it. Obviously, there's going to be some people are going to miss meetings, but I think you need a group that size because it may be 4 or 5 of us meeting.
Can I just emphasise the other thing is, if you haven't, give us your emails, please. It's the only effective way we can communicate to people, so especially those people who are volunteer. Please make sure we've got your email.
Yeah, can I nominate myself because Sarah's pushed me back?
It's too late to put you down.
You're down already. Oh, right, that's all right then. I'm not putting my hand in my pocket though, but I can't commit because I'm on the governors and we're looking after all the 122. But if there's a pub involved, I'll make every effort.
Okay, right, now we just need a discussion, either around the room or in groups, whatever you want to do it, just to what we want.
And what you can contribute, perhaps.
Go around the room. Okay. Who would like to go first?
What's the question?
What can you contribute?
And
what do you want?
What do you hope it will be able to do for youth?
Right, Johnny's... Right, what do you want from Hay Together?
I'd like to see greater communication between all the different groups in Hay, and communication and cooperation.
Yeah. I'm disappointed. No, I shouldn't be negative. It would be more important to see the youth and the sports people and everybody else engaged in this thing. And there are some good new kids at the youth department. I don't have much to do with them, but I did the other week, and Ruben was a guy who springs to mind. I got full of
Jeff Carrott. I think Hay Together could work very well as a forum. I think the forum could have a committee. The committee could have bank accounts and the means to negotiate with the outside world for the forum, so that the forum can be an open, undirected thing where everybody can come in, all the groups can have access. I don't know, I just feel that keeping it as open and uncommitted as possible, at the same time giving it a good structure, rotating chair or whatever, for meetings. Just one thing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I think reaching as many people in Hay as possible is going to take quite a bit of imagination, and it's going to take quite a bit of work. Yeah, don't be afraid to ask people to come and deliver things and knock on doors and things like that.
Yeah, communication is the thing between. There's so many different things going on in Hay, what I want to see is a Hay that can take anything that's thrown at it and talk back. And if we all sit together, then we can do that.
Sorry, David James, I'm a rural housing enabler. I was asked to come just as an observer tonight.
So more affordable housing in Hay?
No, I met with Ellie and Liz yesterday, and I just explained that I would be willing to work with the community. I wasn't going to volunteer tonight because I work with 52 different communities.
So we're special.
But it's been very interesting to listening to you all speak. You're all here for a reason. Obviously, you've all got your concerns and your own ideas, but it's not for me to say. I'll be led by you, and if I can help, I will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ellie?
Like everybody else, I'd like Hay Together to be the whole project to be very inclusive. I think it's important not to overlook those people that don't come to meetings and don't go to clubs.
Yeah.
Elderly people, disabled people. I think we need to be very forward-thinking. We need to have a long-term plan which has no end to it. We need to be thinking what happens when our children are grandparents and their children are grandparents. We've got to build something here that is sustainable and will be resilient and cope with the future, whatever shape it takes.
And I'm Liz Mears, and I've started a campaign for affordable housing, and also started a feminist group in the time. I'd like people, I guess, to sort of learn from this and find out what the issues are for all the people in town, really, and the surrounding area, and just hopefully it'll make it a more sort of caring and understanding community.
Okay. I'm Rodney Mace. I'm from U3A and Hay First, which was the sort of legal group for Plan B. I agree with the last two speakers about the need to include people who don't come to these meetings and don't have grey hair, and I think it would be very good that we, for me anyway, to engage particularly the young in the town. And I know there is a feeling among some of the young in the town that they would like to participate in one way or another in the direction and governance, in a sense, of this town. So I would like that to be enormously and importantly encouraged.
I'm Betty Moore Cooper. I'm chair of Hay Community Support
and also U3A Hay. What I don't want to see is for nothing really constructive to come out of all these meetings, all this talking. I've been around the block a bit, and a few years ago I was part of an organisation, I can't even remember what it was called now, but we had public meetings in every village dotted around Hay, which were very well attended, and we had these wonderful flip charts where people wrote down what they wanted for their villages. And they were all pretty cynical, I have to admit, and we said, no, this Powys County Council has asked us to do this, and when we'd been around the villages, I then got hold of all these flip charts and condensed everything so it was legible by Powys County Council, and sent all this off to them. End of story. So I don't want that to happen again.
I'm Sandra Haffard, I'm the manager of Hay District Community Support. Betty's talking about the community strategy, which I remember very well. Yeah. We've been working in the community for 25 years, and our management committee is made up of representatives of various organisations. Obviously, certainly not representative of everybody here this evening. Having worked for 25 years, I'm very conscious that there is money out there. It's getting increasingly difficult to access. And one of the things I'd like to see is that the community organisations, Dial-A-Ride and ourselves and sports groups are very much a focus point of the group, so that they are helped to continue to exist. And if I can make a plug, we've got our annual general meeting next Thursday. If anybody would like to come along, they're more than welcome. That's at St John's Room at 7 o'clock. We're looking for new members of the management committee, representative of groups, and we're also looking for a guest speaker. And I wondered whether somebody from this group might bring you to conference.
Make a lot to be used, we've got school numbers.
Don't be so pleased.
No, you should have had another email. Our secretary made a mistake. Sorry. Yes, fine.
We can come and talk about parking as well.
Yeah, good.
Just a general sort of feel of
When is that? What date is it?
Kristen, I'm fairly new in Hay. I'm part of the Hayfield Gardens, Hayfield Community Gardens, just over the bridge. It seems to me this might be a swear word I'm using, but it seems to me that this is looking like a transition town movement.
Yeah.
Looking at where architecture's going, where the economics is going, where local food sources are, and what happens when we run out of fuel and all that sort of thing. And I know that's very general, but it seems to be. That seems to me to be what we're trying to cover.
Well, when I first came here, we were doing the Market Town Initiative.
A few years ago.
And they produced a lovely plan. I don't know if anyone's seen the plan. We've actually got a copy of it. It's great. And there was, I think we spent £300,000 on that overall, which is quite a lot of money. Would have built the school actually at the time. So I think we have a history of missed opportunities actually, and we have a town full of pop-ups. We have a transition town organisation, and when we started that, we had a pop-up one that was an old version that popped up, and then it went down again. So we had lots of pops-ups and lots of organisations and lots of initiatives, spend lots of money, and we're still in a really crappy building to run our school, which is quite disgraceful, in my opinion. So I think we shouldn't repeat all that somehow. I don't really know what else to say, but I don't think we need to repeat. And the fact that we're in this building, and we're running our school in this building, is pretty disgraceful, really. That's it. Don't do it again.
I would like an inclusive process to develop together a sustainable plan to go into the future, and one that, to echo you and others, one that will be implemented, that has concrete steps that individuals and groups commit to, and that is long term.
I like just about everything I've heard this evening. I'm not just hearing enthusiasm, I'm actually hearing commitment. And so for all those plans that propped up previously but didn't quite go anywhere, if anything takes us anywhere, it will be the commitment. And so I just agree with what I've heard, and if we can get a plan in place, which may take us a couple of years, talking to the rest of the community and all the different nooks and crannies of Hay, and we get out a picture of where everybody wants Hay to go in all the different aspects of quality town life, I think that will stand us in really good stead when we come up against all sorts of issues, like the school is one recent one, but where the voice of the town gets heard really strongly. You know, the whole voice of the town. And that's what I'm sort of looking forward to. And I'm sorry I can't help you get the meeting together for September because I'm going away, but I will put some effort in after that, Johnny, in some way that I can. Thank you.
I'm Sarah, and I represent a number of the sports groups. I'd like to echo probably some of the comments that Sandra made in terms of demonstrating to the community how we can support existing groups and help them continue to sustain and develop, because it is quite tough out there. And they're all fighting for the same young people, so we need to be smart about how we do that. I think I've also been around a fairly long time. I know I'm relatively young, but I've been involved in talking groups where we've talked about moving the community forward, and this group clearly needs to move from being a talking group to a doing group, and we need to be realistic and really have some really well-defined goals with some time frames that we can demonstrate to the community why we're going to be different from anything else that's moving forward.
My name's Joe Hans. I'm a local grower with a small holding just on the outskirts of Hay, down by the co-op. So my big thing is growing food, and I want to supply food to the people of Hay, and I've had a passion for this for a long time. So I've come and listened, and I didn't really know what to expect and everything like that, and I've actually got quite confused while I've been listening to it. But I suppose what I want from Hay is you know, to create sort of a pride in localism, and create that so the businesses are working together, and you know, really get that feeling, that strength as a local community, and its uniqueness really, you know, like so bring sort of things like that up, sense of pride.
Yeah. Tim Morgan, Towns in Transition and Plan B. I'm particularly passionate about town planning and the way that places like this can retain their uniqueness but become relevant to the future, which will involve massive change. What we have to recognise is that the whole process of planning, people now accept, town planners, that it's a dynamic process, but we actually live in an area which is controlled by a highly bureaucratic and structured organisation where they write things down and they don't necessarily look at things on their merits. So I would like to see emerging from Hay some pressure on the planning system to become much more pragmatic and recognise how things need to change for the future and to become more sustainable. The other aspect I view slightly as an outsider, as I live in Gleneigan, is that Hay is very layered as a community, and there are those that resent the influence and the actions of the people who make things happen at the moment, and somehow that's very it is very divisive. Then there's the third group, which I think we must engage with, who haven't been mentioned tonight, are those that have houses here but don't even live here. And we must engage with them so that they make a really positive contribution to the way that the town is run. So that would be my vision of a dynamic approach to the future with a view to becoming a much more sustainable and a harmonious community.
As you know, I'm Gareth. I've got a drink problem now. I think most people have said most things, but I think what's important, it sort of goes on what Tim just said. I wasn't born in Hay. I don't live in Hay. I live in Painscastle, but I play a major part in what Hay delivers. I play a major part in 123 young people being active on a Saturday morning through social activity, through the medium of football. And it's very important that we put Hay together as a model of good practice, so the surrounding villages and communities continue to buy into the product of Hay. And we make it sustainable, we make it positive through communication, through all the keywords that we've used. But we action it and we make sure that they are actions in a positive way now. But it isn't just about Hay, it's what is Hay and where we move that forward.
I'm Kate Freeman. I'm a painter and I've been asked to represent the artists and craftspeople of Hay. And I'd just like to reiterate what a lot of people have said, that I think it's important for this Hay Together forum to be a place where all members of the community feel valued and that their opinions matter, and so that people can have a voice, and people who might maybe feel sidelined feel that they will have somewhere where people can hear them.
My name's Sarah Putt. I was also asked to represent the artists and artisans of Hay with their needs and also obviously what they can contribute to the community. And it's great to actually have faces to put to organisations. I'm fairly new to Hay, so it's really good to know about the voluntary organisations that, for example, artists perhaps can contribute